Hey, thanks so much for clicking on this video and checking out my 240SX swapped Datsun 620. I'll go ahead and leave a little preview right here for the finished product of this video if you don't want to stick around for all of the details and everything. If you are interested in seeing what I did with this project, stick around. I go over the drive shaft that I got and how I made a couple of the subframe mounts and things like that. And then just quickly showing each individual mounting spot. So check it out and let me know if you have any questions in the comments. Thanks. So a little bit of good news, bad news kind of situation here. Bad news, that carrier bearing support that I made in the last video is pretty much not used. The good news is I got this sweet new driveline from Driveline Services of Portland, but I talked to the guy there and he asked me why I wanted like the guibo and the carrier bearing and multiple U-joints, and basically I just told him I don't know what I'm doing. So so he had the yoke and then and the flange for the diff in stock, so it only took him about a week to get to this. So this is all brand new everything. So these are serviceable Spicer U-joints, so I can actually go to any parts store and buy replacement U-joints if anything happens to this. And they're serviceable, which is awesome, unlike the 240SX one. So now I have the output shaft, a U-joint, the drive shaft, a U-joint, and the flange. That's it. So I'm gonna put this in and then get my angle in place for this so that I know how high to mount that rear differential, because right now it's just kind of floating. The length is set. I had it set by centering the wheels in the wheel wells. So wheels are centered in the wheel wells, and that's what gave me my distance. He had me measure from the output shaft tip to the flange. That's what he wanted. That's the measurement he wanted. And then he added in what was necessary to give this the right amount of slip into the transmission. Being that it's an independent rear suspension, it's not really going to be moving in and out of the transmission very much, only like with chassis flex. But it still does need to be able to slip in and out a tiny bit. So he said he designs them to plunge about 2/3 of the way in, and that's how they're built. So he's been doing it for about 50 years, so I trust him. So let's get this in, get the angles measured up, and then I can start building the subframe mounts. Let's go. Okay, let me try to explain this without putting everyone to sleep. So drive shaft angle is pointing down, and that's just to compensate a little bit of the U-joint operating angle. These U-joints can't take up as much angle as most people think they can. So this is just pointing down, like I said, just to compensate that. And this this diff flange, this angle matches up with the output shaft angle, so they're parallel. And then lastly, and that's the drive shaft plunge, if you want to call it that, how much it's sitting into the transmission. This is how the driveline builder built it and designed it. I trust his recommendations on that, so yeah, that's where this is going to sit. So with all those angles and distances and dimensions all sorted out generally, now I have the extremely tedious process of squaring this up and centering everything on this before I start building mounts. Also, I built these with an angle grinder, and that's it. Just so it's got the same, I think it's like a 15-degree angle on there, and then I cut the radiuses to match with those cups earlier. So I'll make those the cross brace that goes from the mounting point to the frame. So let's get started. All right, it's a few hours later. I got both fronts tacked in place. Just got to build out some supports here. I decided to go ahead and build another one of those like thick washers, kind of like an integrated washer, just to distribute the load of the bolt head out throughout this a little bit more. So now I've got the thickness of this, and that for the bolt to crush through, so should be good. And then I have my spacer inside of the bushing, and it is sitting on its own in the front, and now I got to build the rears. Okay, we had a excellent day working on it yesterday. My buddy came through and helped me put some stuff together. Everything is sitting where it's supposed to be, mounted up, all the angles are right, it's all squared up. It's sitting a little bit low for what I like. It's got ridiculously bad camber, like 4.5 degrees. So I'm gonna have to address that. I'll probably lift up the ride height by maybe 1 inch to 2 inches, and then set those coil towers. Those still need to be welded in place. I'm gonna try and shorten them as much as I can, thread the tube in and get them as short as possible before welding those in, but I'm stoked. Subframe sits a tiny bit lower than I wanted it to, but with the way the engine, like I said, with the way the engine and transmission sits, this was the way I had to make it work with the driveline angles and things like that. So we're sitting good. I threw the wheels and brakes on there just to get an idea of how it was sitting, and I'm glad I did. But once I know everything's all good and the suspension will work out, then I'll come back and finish weld everything and put in the bracing. But that's it. Thanks for watching.